everybody. It is your Friday lunchtime motivation. Yes, you are here at Litvak Leadership Live, where we talk about various topics for personal improvement and leadership of others. I'm glad you made it here today. We've got a great guest, someone that I've known for a number of years, and frankly, someone that I need to talk to more often in my life because he's always full of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. But before I bring our guest on, I want to ask you, are you following Litvak Leadership at the social media listed below? Well, whatever social media you're on right now, you should be hitting that follow button and ringing the bell if there's one, so you will be notified of every single post and every single video that I have out there. My objective is to help people improve themselves, move forward in leadership, and reach the goals that they have for themselves to make their life for their family better and to affect the world. So check me out on all of those different social media platforms. Today, we're going to be talking about energy and expectation, fuel achievement, and I'm bringing on a friend of mine. His name is David O'Connor, so let's bring him there. How you doing, David?
Great, Sean. How's it going today?
It is a gloriously busy day, and anyone
hey, that's good.
Yeah, anyone who says, "Oh, I'm too busy," I always want to say to them, "What is wrong with you? You want to be busy. Busy is a good
That's right.
thing."
That's right.
So,
That's a good thing.
David and I have known each other since, I've got to think here a minute. It would be 1998.
Yeah.
When my family and we moved out to the country and we started attending First Baptist Church of Elizabeth, Indiana. And David and I got to be good friends, involved in a lot of things together, even worked on an accountability partnership at one point together for a couple years. And we just watched each other's families grow and support one another. So David, it's always interesting and encouraging to see what you post on social media. I count you as almost always a like-minded individual.
Yeah, we're fairly close, but we can still have a disagreement here or there, and
absolutely.
And we have not lost the art of being able to disagree and still be friends.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how that works. Yes.
It is completely amazing how that works. So let me ask you, just leaping from there in our theme of energy and expectation, fuel achievement. When two people who are friends have a disagreement, is energy appropriate?
I think it is. I think you should still. And I'll give you an example. We had when I was an athletic director, and I had someone else was coaching my son, and he's a good friend of mine. I actually hired Rob as my head basketball coach, and we had a little difference of opinion as to what he was doing, or what that ended up. He was right. Full disclosure, he was right, but I was trying to avoid having an energetic conversation between he and I, because we were just seeing things so differently. And he just came straight forward, eye to eye, and said, we're not going to do this. We're going to discuss this straight up, right out front. And it was that energy that just, and then it was just gone. The problems we were having and the issue that was at hand was instantly taken care of, because it was hit head on. And I've always kind of put that in the back of my mind when I'm dealing with a friend. If we have a little difference of opinion, you can handle it. You have to handle it, sometimes delicately, but I still think you bring the energy and you bring it straight forward, because I think in the end, that's really what takes care of the problem.
So how do people, bring energy into social media conversations? This and this and one other thing are like the bear on my back. How do you bring energy into social media conversations when there is no tone? You may just be, energetic about something and passionate, but people think that you are pointing a finger at them or being hateful. How do you communicate that properly?
I try to be the king of full disclosure, if you will. and I like to start off, and I will always add, it's really dangerous, I think, to just post or repost something without putting it in some sort of context, because I
Mhm.
think that's mostly when that happens. When people tend to get fired up about something is when you're just simply passing along someone else's thought. And I think it's important to add your own thoughts and feelings into something that you're posting, because I think that kind of takes a little bit of the edge off with people, that they're actually seeing that you've thought about something, or that you have an opinion on it, rather than you're just throwing someone else's stuff out there. It doesn't always work. Sometimes you still get people. We're just in a society today where more and more often people want to be angry about things, and sometimes you can't do anything about that.
Well, and I've found myself in social media conversations where I'm full of energy and, I'm expectant as to what I believe the outcome should be. So we could call that achievement. And I'm trying to educate people. I'm thinking of one particular topic in particular, which I'm not going to name the topic because people
We don't want to start that.
I don't want to start that today on this
Yeah,
live stream. That would be a live stream unto itself. And what I'm trying to do is instruct people on what I believe to be the factual truth
yeah,
of how their opinion is erroneous. And some people just have such a wall up that they won't even respond with, this is a very difficult topic we're discussing. They just get hateful and, they are brutish about being corrected. That's what reproof is.
yeah.
And I do my best to keep my cool. I can think of one situation where I was doing that on social media, and all of a sudden, here comes David into the conversation that somehow it must have appeared on his stream.
Yeah.
How do you handle when that happens, when someone is just 180 degrees the
Yeah.
opposite, and they're wrong?
Yeah, and sometimes that's the thing you want to. I heard of, or I saw a meme sometime at some point when somebody put, it's more important to be nice than right, and I thought, well, sometimes,
Sometimes.
but it's also extremely important to be right if you have people that are depending on your words for guidance to any degree. Yeah, I think it's more important to be right at that point, because sometimes the truth or the facts of the matter may upset people, and you have to be willing to take that risk of upsetting someone sometimes. Now that doesn't give you and this is something over the years that I've had to call myself on and catch myself, where I would use that as a crutch for just being a jerk, you know, and you don't want to do that. And I know we've talked about this in the past about how, you gave me a famous line years ago of what comes to your mind doesn't have to come out of your mouth. That's the Sean Litvak right there, original. And my wife and I use that often when we're talking with people. Just because I thought it doesn't mean I need to say it. Um, but I think you have to build some credibility, maybe in other places with people. I think there's a certain amount of people you're never going to be able to come to a gentleman's agreement with on things, because they're just not. They just don't want to. And you got to know when to, the old, Kenny Rogers, know when to walk away, and sometimes you got to run.
So, switching gears a little bit, you're involved in a lot of different things. You work for an employer. You are a part of the John Maxwell team as a coach and public speaker. You've been involved for years and years in youth sports. You're a deacon at First Baptist Church of Elizabeth. You've got a lot of things going on. I'm sure you've got a lot of things going on in your mind. How do you keep all of your various facets that you have your hands into road blocking one another to moving ahead in any of them?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it really it's one of those things that a lot of times when you get so busy, you don't think about how you get it done. You just do it. But the
Hmm.
reality is, it's so much better and so much easier on you and on everyone else around you, especially your spouse. Poor Renee, she's a saint among saints without a question. My wife, because like I do have kind of a crazy schedule sometimes, and it's important though to get through that by I always have to take a lot of time. I spend a lot of time every day just thinking at different times. In the morning, I try to get up, pretty early. I get up early, but I sometimes find myself staying up late as well. But I spend a lot of times thinking and planning. That's just most of the things that I say, or if you see me post something, it's rarely on a whim. I'm not a whim person. Generally, it is something that's been thought out for a long time or multiple times before I put something out there, before I take a stance on something. And I think that time of reflection beforehand is extremely important. I think it helps me navigate and put all this stuff together. And because when you're sitting and thinking about things, you can bring more things into one. I'm thinking about, coaching, basketball's getting ready to start. So we're talking about, preseason, coaching and things. And then I'm thinking about things I've got to do at church, and a lot of that stuff though can carry over. It's the same thought processes that I go through.
Sure.
So I can combine them while I'm thinking about it. And then it's just like anything else. It's kind of like practicing ahead of time. When I mentally practice, it's the same as physically practice. And I think then when it's time to go on, I've already done it. I've done it in my mind a dozen times.
So when you say you sit down to think, do you and you schedule it? It sounds like each day, specific times. If you're blocking out on a calendar or whatever, do you have a specific thought process for thinking? Or do you just say, okay, here's the topic, what do I need to do? And you start making a list. What is your process?
Yeah. My process is normally, and this comes from my military background. We used to call them rock drills. And a rock drill is basically you figure out what in education, when I was teaching, they called it backwards design. But basically it's you figure out what your objective is, and you just work backwards from there as to how you're going to reach it and what you're going to do. And that's where you can find those commonalities between different aspects of your life that you can kind of put things together, at least the thought process of it. And it doesn't, because it's for me, I'm not as physical on things as I used to be, but I'm more mental on things. But it's the same concept. It's that same practice and it's taken me a while to get to kind of hone that in, but it's the same process. I look at the end result, and then I just work backwards for where I need to be at certain times or certain places to get to where I need to be. And then eventually you get back to, okay, well, I'm here right now, so this is where I start. So this is my starting point, and what do I have to do between those things to get what I need?
I have started doing that. I've probably been doing it for a while, but one new thing that I've been doing is I've got a few different projects going on that are all interlaced with one another for an ultimate goal. And so I'm publishing a book in November.
Awesome.
And there is a whole list of steps that need to occur between now and then for Proverbs for Leadership to launch on November 21st. And my publisher sent me a list in Word, and it was amazing, where it had a list of things to do, the start date that those things should start, and the end date that those things should accomplish. And I looked at this and I was like, it should be in Excel. So I copied and pasted it into Excel, and then I realized I could take my other projects and add them to this list and then sort them. And next thing I knew, I had an entire list where I was working on multiple projects at once, but I had very, due dates for the most important immediate things. So I wasn't going too far on a project and leaving another behind. It makes me wonder, why does it take so long for our minds to figure things like that out? I mean, you and I both got some gray going on. You would think that we would have figured that out by now.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I'm sure if you look back in your history, someone told you that years ago. Maybe multiple someone's told you that, and you just did. I know. With me, I will run into that sometimes where I all of a sudden it's this new process to me, and I'll think back and think, well, geez, that's what so and so told me years ago, but I was just maybe too stubborn or whatever to pay attention and to listen. I think that's what age brings a lot of wisdom and a lot of change where you're more acceptable to you. It's where it's more acceptable to you to do something different.
Well, I remember you and I having a conversation one time with a large group, and we were both fairly animated. And I think back to how much smoother that conversation, that presentation may have gone if you and I had tempered our energy down
Yeah,
somewhat, because,
yeah,
we have the capabilities, although, as you said, we've gotten older, so we have, calmed down a bit, or the word I use is moderated.
yeah.
Um,
There you go. That's a much
but
better word. Yeah,
moderated. But even tempering something down,
yeah,
what do you do when you find yourself um, either getting agitated or excited? Because they're both
yeah,
similar experiences, but you need to speak in a very measured way. How do
yeah.
you moderate yourself?
I, it is that's really tough. That's really because you're right. I am still when it's time to be on like in a speaking engagement or something. That's for the most part that is my go-to. Is that's one of the reasons people ever want to hear me. Is because that's what I bring to the
Right.
table. But you're 100% right. Sometimes that can be a little too much. I remember exactly what you're talking about, and I agree. We would have been much more effective if we would have toned things down a little back in the day. And I
Definitely.
still find myself running into that sometimes. And it doesn't even have to be in a big event setting. It can be in a like in a small coaching session,
Yeah.
or something, or when I'm working with some kids, and just you gotta back it down. What I try to do is just do a mental reset. And I've got a friend of mine who you probably need to have on your podcast here, Andrew Grants. Andrew was I coached with him at Providence High School, um,
Okay.
and he started a new company called Greater Goal Athletics, and it's all on, and that's what it's on. It's completely it's the mental side of sports, and he's beginning to work with high school and college athletes about the mental side of athletics and things. It's fascinating work, and he goes through some step by step processes of how you can do that, how you can on the go you can reset your mind, and sometimes it's something simple. You can have like a visual cue or a verbal cue that you say, and kind of one that I have is when things are going kind of off the rails, I'll just kind of clap my hands and say all right, and that's kind of for me mentally that's a reset for me to tone it down and to calm
Hmm.
down. And you can do things like that that go almost unnoticed when you're doing it. We were talking about that in a session this summer, and one of my basketball players, he just laughed when he said, because he pointed and said, "You already do that." He said, "You hit your hands and do that. This mental cue." I said, "That's right. That's because and it was refreshing to know someone was actually paying attention like
Sure.
that." And this was a kid that had picked up on that. That there's times when we're animated people that we have to slow it down a little bit and calm it down some.
So, so many people ignore the spirituality in their lives, and uh, I have really, over time, and now more so now than ever, embraced the thought that I am a spirit. I have a soul, a mind, a will, and emotions, and I live in a body. And I really break it up. That is scripture, that is paraphrased, but nonetheless, truth. And what do you do, David, to take all of your ideas, all of your energy, your excitement, where you're moving forward, but at the same time get quiet to hear from God, so you can move forward properly, because, the thoughts of man do not necessarily
Yeah,
achieve. God may have a different plan.
that's right. And I think for me, Sean, it starts with that is literally my entire worldview comes through my faith, and I have developed that over the year. You get to that point, in Scripture, the as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Right.
And a lot of times we associate that with just our physical homes and our families. But the reality is that house is me. That house has to start with me, and this house right here, this is where that starts with me, and it has to be in all phases of my life. And so once you accept that, hey, this is my worldview, and this is where everything that I do, I'm going to look at it in this way, in this framework. Then I think it's easier to look for those times when you can listen for the Lord's direction. And I drive a lot. I'm on the road a lot. I keep a pretty busy schedule, but as part of that, I'm very fortunate that a lot of time I spend a lot of time alone. And so it's funny because I'm either around a lot of people and there's a lot of people pulling for my time,
Right.
or I'm by myself, or it's just me and Renee, or it's me and Chris and my grandkids. So I go from those extremes of, hey, I'm in a big group where I've got to be on, and then I'm in a small group or alone where I can take that time. And that really, I have learned over the years to take advantage of that time. That downtime when I'm not on the stage or I'm not
Mhm.
in front of a bunch of people, that's when I can really hone in on, because the Lord doesn't go away.
No.
It's not like, he's right there through all of it. So whenever you get that break, he's right there. You don't have to, and it's not really that self-talk. See, to me, that's what, when I'm in my car, I'm having conversations with the Lord nonstop, all the time, all the time. It's just because that's where, and again, when I was younger, I would think that was me just talking to myself. But as I've grown, I've understood, and as I get deeper into Scripture, and I understand, hey, that that's what that time is. And one of the things that I know is and other people, who maybe don't have a Christian faith, and they're still searching for what they really believe or what have you. I think that's something that I think we can still help them as well. Just from that process of reflection, not only for yourself, but reflecting around you as to the situations that are going on. It's
Right.
the same process. And
So,
I think it really,
go ahead. You
I
think
think
it's
it's really a, because you know me, I'll discuss faith with anybody at any time. And
sure.
I try to make it a great point. I'm never going to judge somebody else's faith or what they believe. Because I have a firm belief that the Lord's gonna call who He's gonna call, and He's going to it's not my responsibility to necessarily save people. He does that. I
Right.
just present what I know. I present what I know and what is real to me, and where I'm at and what I've seen and what I know. And so, but that doesn't mean you can't take the things from my Christian beliefs and the way that I go about my faith. If you have another faith, you can take that. You can take those same principles and and
Hmm.
and have a positive effect on your life. And if you can do that, that's great. I'm all for it. I'm all for it, and I'll let all the other stuff will work out. That's between those people and the Lord, not me.
So when you looking at your past, because I've seen you work for different organizations, and I remember you posting one time about you're now where you need to be. You tried to run away from your calling, but you're now there. Talk a little bit about that period of time and how you knew that you may have been self-sabotaging by not focusing on your calling.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you get you get we get sure of so many things in our lives, and the reality is we're not sure of anything. You think, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is where I'm at, and it's so easy to get off track and where you are, And there were those things. And at that time in my life, it was like I kind of knew where I was supposed to be, but I didn't see how it was fully going to happen. So because I couldn't see it,
Hmm.
I couldn't see it. I couldn't figure out how I was going to make it happen. And it wasn't until I kind of gave up that power, gave up that authority in my life, and I said, "Hey, Lord, if this is going to happen, it's going to be you are going to have to do this." And that's when things became a lot easier, and I was able to get past those things because I didn't think I could do it. I was moving further and further away from where I was supposed to be. And once I realized that all the results aren't up to me, I'm just
Right.
supposed to be. I am just supposed to be faithful, because that's really what it is. When you think it's up to you and you can't see the end result, or you can't see how it's going to happen, that really is a lack of faith. And that may be a lack of spiritual faith, or it may be a lack of faith in, in your abilities, or faith in, just what the plan is. And I think that's where I was at. And that's a tough place to be. That was a tough place to be, with just having a lack of direction, lack of faith. And in that, trying to do everything myself a different way. And when I kind of let all that go and realize that, hey, I'm going to do what I know is right. And then it's amazing how things work out when you do that. When you just do what you know you're supposed to do, and don't worry about the results. It's really free on things, and
So
that really helped me a lot.
so when you do what you know is right, and we're going to go a little bit over here, because I've had this conversation with people where they will say, well, I'm doing what I know is right. And my response to them is, what are you basing it on?
Yeah,
Well, on what's right. And I'm like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't just base it on what
yeah,
you think is right.
yeah,
Whether I agree with your faith,
yeah,
meaning your spirituality, meaning
yeah,
your relationship with God, the way you approach it. If someone tells me, well, I'm believing, I am doing this and I see this as right because of this relationship, then I may not agree with it, but I see it has a
yeah,
foundation.
yeah,
The people that say, well, it's just right or it's just wrong, but they refuse
yeah.
to base it on anything. What do you say to them?
Yeah, I agree. That is because it if you think that is easy to say, well, it's just because it's right, then you're not then you're not doing what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a deep soul searching, and a constant years of knowing, where you needed to be, and what and where all your skills are, where all your gifts are, where all your, all of these other things that are the foundations for
And
you
it's a
to
supernatural
excel.
relationship with
Yeah,
God.
yeah,
It's
because
not
because
what you think you're good at.
that's right. That's exactly it is what is gonna is this going to allow me to excel? And that's one of the things we're talking about is excelling. And that
Hmm.
really is a big that has to be part of it, is am I prospering in this? If I do this, is this part? And I do believe that's part of it. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of times we stand in our own ways from, and I don't mean prosperity as far as money or anything like that. I mean being prosperous in spirit, being prosperous in our relationships, in our goals, in our work, in our play, in our all of those things, more than anything financial. Uh, and I think that's where we sometimes get this idea, like you said, I think this is right. Well, it's got to be more than I think this is right. That's not that's not the cure. Like you said, you show me the entire matrix that you're talking about, and then I can help guide you as to whether you're right or not. And a lot of times, and that's one thing that I failed to mention, is getting, at that point in my life, I had to have other people speak into my life.
Hmm.
I was not necessarily with anybody. I hate even saying it this way, but I was in the room with people that couldn't really give me guidance.
Sure.
That they weren't capable. Great people, anything like that, but they weren't really able to give me the guidance that I needed. I had to find another room.
Right. You had to
And,
expand. You had to
yes,
adjust your circle of influence.
yes, exactly. And that was critical. That was absolutely critical for me in getting, because other people were able to see things differently than the people that I had been with for a long time.
Right.
And that was part of it. And I always say the Lord had to send me to an exile for about a year. It was about 13 months, that I was pushed to a place. Basically, I was alone, and I had to find a new circle, and I had to add some people here and add some people there, and it really made a huge difference in my life. I know it's not easy. It's not easy. You'd like to think that, oh, change is, you're intuitive on your change of things, but that's not always the case. A lot of times it takes a while to get to that thing you're supposed to be doing, and then
And
what you're supposed to do.
And that is the perfect lead in to wrap up. But I want to put this scripture up there because I think it's wholly appropriate. And I want you to talk about this as we wrap up, that it says in Proverbs 12:28, in the way of righteousness is life, and in its pathway there is no death. I think that's very appropriate for what we've been talking about. So wrap us up with your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that is just. I mean, that's solid gold. That is solid gold right there, because, again, and it has to do with a lot of the, when you're living the right way, when you're seeing things the right way, when you're going the right way. It permeates all parts of your life, all parts of your existence. And when you turn away from that, it does as well. So thinking on the positive side of it, hey, when I can inject all this positive energy
Mhm.
and positive thought process, and the good solid decision making, when I can interject all of that into my entire life, you really, it is such a better journey that you're all of a sudden on. You overnight, you can really snap out of a lot of dark places, because those dark places are going to come, without a doubt. You're going to hit those times when, either bad things happen, or you may have some mental health issues, or something may come up, or whatever. And you're
Right.
going to find yourself in a spot you don't want to be. And I think that's where, if you're doing all these things, and you're letting these positives go into the rest of your life, and you're living one life rather than trying to live multiple lives. If you're one person, it's much easier to stay on that pathway that brings you life, and it brings you an existence that you feel is really truly worth living, and part of where you need to be. So
Awesome. Awesome. Everyone, this has been Litvak Leadership Live, number 170.
awesome. That's great.
Energy and yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Energy and expectation, fuel achievement. My good friend David O'Connor has joined us today. He is a member of the John Maxwell team as a coach, a speaker, a motivator, someone that you can work with to improve yourself from a specific basis. There's his phone number if you want to text him and get in touch with him. Additionally, if you have not looked at my social media across all these platforms and liked it and hit the notification bar, I would be honored if you would do that, so you would know when I'm going live or looking at different posts that I put out there for the week. Again, David, thank you so much for being my guest this week.
Everyone else, I appreciate it.
You bet. I'll be back next week with another guest and another topic, but you can be sure it will be about self-improvement and leadership. That's it for now. See ya.